pole vaulting and training for pole vaulting and becoming, what we became as athletes. And Dad always said in his level system that we grew up in, that the final level, the mastery level, is giving back.
Episode one more jump podcast.
Whoop, whoop.
I always knew we'd end up doing something like this. I didn't know when or how it would come about. Obviously came about in a pretty odd and extraordinary way. I guess just hopping into disclaimer before we go into introductions and questions and stuff. COVID-19's going on. And who knows what listeners will hop back to episode 1 if this just takes flight, no pun intended there, and ends up becoming real popular. But just so everyone who's listening or watching knows, we're doing this remote. We're technically under, I guess, a quote unquote quarantine, and doing this out of basements and guest rooms and over the internet. And we'll do the best we can here. So I guess just hopping in, Jake, tell us about you, how this came about, why we wanted to do this. Tell us why One More Jump.
So I'm Jake Winder. I am the oldest of the Winder brothers. And I live in Joliet, Illinois. I've lived here since I was 2 years old. I don't think we need to go back that far. But I don't know why. All right. Anyway. I'm married to my wife, Michelle. I've got 2 little girls, Lacey and Brooklyn. And, I am an elementary school teacher, and then I am the owner of Rise Athletic Club. Rise Athletic Club is a track and field club, USATF sanctioned track and field club, but right now we currently specialize in the pole vault, but we are opening up a new event group pretty soon, but that's going to remain anonymous right now. We're not going to release that event group just yet. Keep you on the edge of your seat. So I'm super pumped about this. I can't stop smiling. I've been smiling for, since we came up with this idea. I think we came up with it. For me, it was motivated behind, originally it was motivated behind creating content for the athletes at the club. So I went through and I was like, okay, so what can I do for the athletes at the club while they're in quarantine? And then I just started coming up with ideas, and I talked to you, and then somehow we got on the idea of a podcast. And I was like, well, a podcast is nice because it's simple. It's inexpensive, because right now I am a small business owner, and it's very, very hard times, obviously, for small business owners right now. And coming up with, a bunch of real professional videos is time consuming. It's there's a lot of labor involved in that, and I just don't think I would have gotten the return on that I would have. The return on the investment wouldn't have been very good. So that was my first motivation, was to just provide content for the kids. And then slowly it morphed into, whoa, this is cool, because me and my dad, and then Luke, our youngest brother, we run the club, Rise Athletic Club. And then you are up in Minnesota, and I've always wanted to have you be involved with what we're doing too. And so this is just, it quickly flipped over from just being about providing pole vault content to being like, hey, we can have Josh involved in this whole thing too, through this podcast. And now I'm super pumped because now we started the ball rolling, and we were like, you know what? Do we necessarily have to talk about pole vaulting the whole time? And then we were like, no, not really.
Yeah.
We can talk about just all the stuff that we're into, and kind of, you know, obviously we're going to revert back to pole vaulting quite a bit, but we're going to be able to expand on, you know, who we are as people, and our lives, and what we're interested in, and you know, things like that. So that's my motivation behind it, is those two things: creating content, you know, for these kids and for other people, not just kids.
Yeah.
And then having you be a part of kind of what we're doing up here in
Well, I
some
think
capacity.
what's cool is like you always want to, I always have wanted to do something like this, and it's almost like I've waited for it to be like, man, I wish I could just drop everything and just focus on putting out content. You know, like I have the whole Winder Up thing. And we'll have like links to Rise and Winder Up at the end of this episode. But I have the whole Winder Up thing and the YouTube and the website, and I put a lot of energy into it. And then, you know, moved up to Minnesota and got really busy with work. And it's like, I wish I could just drop everything and just focus on putting out content. And then the COVID-19 situation started
Boom!
just blowing
Hit
up
you
like
like a ton of
crazy.
bricks.
And it was literally like, it seemed like a week or two where it was like, okay, this is, you know, kind of a big deal. And then it was like, holy cow, this is getting to be a pretty big deal. And then it's like, hey, you pretty much are confined to your house unless it's an emergency. So we were forcefully put into a position where it's like, well, I'm spending a lot of time on my computer and messing around on video and audio software, and, you know, watching a bunch of Netflix, you know, in between all the running and exercising that I like to think I'm doing. So, you know, in comes One More Jump podcast.
Yeah, and the coolest part, well, one of the cool parts about it is that people don't realize that we have, all through our childhood, we were super into audio and production. Like we played in a band together, which I don't even know if we need to.
Hey, we
release.
toured.
Yeah,
We were on tour
Joliet.
in the south suburbs of Chicago. We were borrowed mom's minivan.
We played at that one place, Rocker Dogs, where it was a bunch of picnic tables as a stage. It was like 5 picnic tables pushed together.
Don't step right there, or else this thing will flip. And they had these old, like really old tape video cameras. They had an old like audio analog recording video sync setup that I remember, man. We walked out of there with a DVD of our live performance, and then we put it in the.
Please tell me somebody's got that DVD.
I hope we do somewhere, because we put that in the DVD player, and I remember thinking this is gonna be awesome. And then we started playing it, and I was like, Jake, I really think we should probably just shut this thing off.
It was terrible. And our drummer's name was Chuck Danger.
Yep.
And we didn't know if that was his real last name, or if he had just made that, if that was like a stage name.
And the drummer before him, Tim, had 2 lions tattooed on his shoulders. Our drummers, man, we can never find somebody.
He was jacked too. Remember that?
He was,
and then he ended up like not liking us or something.
Yeah, we had a falling out because he. I don't know. We won't get into that, but
yeah. Anyway, so we have a long history with audio, and like we've spent in our childhood and our youth, we used to just get obsessed with, you know, producing our own songs, and you know, having the highest quality microphones and having the highest quality. That was whenever we flipped from analog to digital, and like we used to have that was whenever they started to come out with interfaces that you could plug into your computer, and you can record your audio into your computer, and we could, you know, because you used to have that analog Tascam
recorder thing that
you used to use, and then we were like, holy cow, you can plug this thing in this USB port and then you can record yourself. So anyway, so we know a decent amount about production, and so then we were like, well, you know, it would be fun for us to kind of tap into that part of our lives again that we haven't, you know,
Well, that's why it
messed with in
was
so long.
so easy for us to, like, when somebody wants to put a podcast together, right? They want it to be, you know, 2 or 3 people in person, feeding off the energy of each other, HD video, 4K video, you know, amazing audio, and
Yeah.
thrown up on all the different places you can watch and listen. And the reality was we did this in a week or two.
Yeah.
And it was just playing on I guess the strengths or knowledge that we had from probably the decade of us dinking around with random pieces of equipment. It's like, hey, go grab a mic. I'll grab a mic. We'll plug it in. We'll press record, and
See how it sounds.
Yeah.
And the cool part is that we used to have that we still sorry. So we had a lot of equipment, you know, so we didn't drop like $1 million into, you know, this equipment and stuff like that. And like this green screen behind me is a bed sheet, you know, like it's just like,
I don't have a green screen. I got an empty guest room.
Actually, that is a green screen. It looks like you're in a basement. Yeah, that's crazy.
I wanted to set it up so that it looked like I was in a room in a basement.
Dude, our first one was me in that outer space one.
Yeah,
but anyway, yeah. So it's been really cool and an exciting time. I don't think I've been this excited about something since I started the club. So
I think what's cool about this is we can have 2 or 3 listeners, you know, our dad,
mom, Luke, maybe Luke,
and our mom, maybe your wife and my wife listens to it for like 15 seconds and then goes, all right, I've heard your voice enough. But it's just cool that we have the ability to hop in here and just like Winder Up, you know, started with, I don't have the most popular YouTube channel ever, but it started with a couple hundred views. And then in a year it went to, I mean, we're at right now a 500,000 views on a YouTube channel. And
that's pretty cool, man.
But what's crazy about that is, and someday, hopefully it's over 1 million, 10 million, who knows? But with a 500,000 views, you got a 500,000, let's just say people, you know, there's people who've watched it multiple times and stuff, but a 500,000 people in the pole vault community watching content that helps them to hopefully take something away, get better, take one little nugget away and be able to, you know, apply it. And
yeah,
I think without diving too much into Winder Up, why don't I back up and kind of just introduce myself, where I'm at, and kind of the why for the podcast. So Josh Winder, Jake's younger brother, but the middle Winder brother. We've got Jake and then Josh and then Luke. I'm Josh. I'm the one who didn't vault 18 plus.
Hey, it's all right, man. it's all right.
Hey, I go to meets and they're like, hey, Josh, I've heard of Jake. I've heard of Luke. I've even heard of Tim. Heck, I've even heard of Margot. But I didn't even know there was a middle son. What's your name? Josh?
It's crazy because you had such an incredible career too. I don't know. It's
cool. I am the one that jokingly people say, "Hey, you're the one who didn't vault 18, right?" Yeah. Well,
you should just say no. That's my other brother. That's the other one.
It's
Jake.
That was Luke. Luke was no good. You know, he won 7 NCAA championships, but he's
actually living in a van down by the river right now.
Speaking of which, somebody said that to me the other day, and I was like, you don't sell enough internet this month. I work for Comcast. You're going to be living in a van down by the river. And I go, I would love to live in a van
Seriously,
down by the river.
That does not sound bad. That's like my dream, man.
We got spring in Minnesota rolling up, the bass fishing and pike fishing. Give me a van down by the Old Miss.
Dude, one of those Sprinter vans, like a pimped out Sprinter van like Alex Honnold has.
Yep.
Get my girls in there, Michelle, and we just...
By your girls, you mean your daughters.
See you later, man. Yeah. Yeah, my girls. Yeah.
Get my girls.
No, yeah, that didn't sound good. I mean Lacey, Brooklyn, and Michelle.
um, so I'm up in Minnesota. So I'm the middle brother. I obviously pole vaulted. And I think the thread that runs through this podcast is going to end up centering around pole vaulting. But I pole vaulted in middle school and high school and had what was supposed to be, a career-ending injury with my senior year in high school. What we call blow out my shoulder. I had a injury that I ended up having to take about 2 years off pole vaulting, and was able to make a recovery, but not even close to where I feel like I could have been at. But that's neither here nor there. But what I did is I fell in love with coaching and got involved in some high schools and helping out at North Central College. And I still love the event and want to be a part of the event. And that's part of the reason we were doing this. But I'm up in Minnesota and have been separated from the event and kind of the uprise of Rise Athletic Club.
Hey.
And I've been having the itch to be a part of it, and now I can remotely through this podcast. But I think the main reason,
really quick, we're not like, this is not Rise Athletic Club podcast. I just work for Rise, and like some of this podcast is going to become content
for
that
sure
I use on my Instagram and social media.
Same with
like
Winder Up.
Right.
And I'm sure that we'll just keep
it's
throwing
its own separate entity.
Yeah. It's just, we'll probably end up making an Instagram just for one more podcast. But I think to get to like the reason the podcast thing,
that's my sump pump. if you can hear.
The reason I want to do this is because I have a habit of talking a lot more than I listen. And I think it's important to, I love podcasts because you learn and you listen, you get to know people, from all over the US or the world, it seems like. And I'm just excited to get people on here, sit back and get some perspective, not just in the pole vault world, but whenever we have guests outside of the pole vault world, learning and understanding how to be a better person, how to be a better athlete, etc. So
for sure. Yeah. And just providing some sort of entertainment. Like for me, I listen to podcasts. I think podcasts have come up, obviously over the last 5 years, exponentially. Like people are listening to podcasts all the time. It's like legitimately, like you can take two earbuds and you can just put them onto your ears, and it's just like knowledge just goes boom, 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 boom. It's not very fast, but it's like you're injecting your brain with knowledge through those two earbuds.
And I can't stand reading, so it's like,
I like reading, but it's just so long. It takes so long.
It was weird because I thought to myself, like, right as YouTube was getting popular, I was like, man, I love YouTube, but at the time it wasn't very good with, like, if I was going to go on a run or if I was going to be lifting or whatever it was, being able to listen to an interview on YouTube. And then these podcasts started happening. And I remember the first day I put in my headphones and had a podcast playing, I was like, this is pretty awesome. Being able to just, like you said, inject knowledge in your head while you're lifting or running. And you and I are both doing this kind of distance running stint, trail running, all that fun stuff. And like, although it is really nice,
passes the time on that for sure.
Well, yeah. And in the woods and on trails, I typically don't have the headphones in, but I live in Minneapolis, like in the city of Minneapolis, and running around in downtown without headphones on is not the most enjoyable experience ever. So
in that concrete jungle, man. And I was introduced to podcasts by my buddy at work. And one thing I was thinking about is that as this podcast goes on, I feel like we're going to it's going to develop characters in our lives. And I was wondering, I was like, do these people want me to like say their name? Probably not. Some of them might. So I was like, man, so we're going to have to like create aliases for these
yeah.
people. So this alias is my buddy at work. That's his alias. My buddy
So
at work.
anytime he comes
I only
up,
got one like real buddy at work. So
well, you only have
whenever
one
he comes
real
up,
coworker at work.
yeah, I guess that's true. But anyway, my buddy at work told me about podcasts like 2 years ago or something, and ever since then I just listen. Joe Rogan Experience, what are some of the other ones? Steve Rinella's Meat Eater podcast,
and what's funny
Ben
is you said Steve
Greenfield.
Rinella, Meat Eater, and I'm Rich Roll, vegan.
I like Rich Roll though. I think he's
Yeah.
interesting too. He sleeps in a tent in his backyard. That's I find that very fascinating.
It is. It's like he's got this nice, I think he lives in somewhere in Southern California, and in the background of his videos you see some, really, really nice modern home with, the wife in the kitchen cooking all of her vegan meals and his kids running around, and he's unzipping his tent.
Right.
But I mean, come on, man, after a good night's sleep in a tent,
it's next level, especially if you don't live I was gonna say in the city. You probably can't. Well, actually, now you could.
No, I could.
But
I'm
if you're
out at cars going by, I've got like a mix between really cool outdoors, like kind of some big trees and a little yard space right next to a busy road. So it's weird, but the busy road takes you to downtown, and you can get on all the sports games.
Yeah, you live in a cool spot. See me, like I feel like in my neighborhood, if I slept out in the backyard, because I've always wanted to set up the tent, because me and the girls are going backpacking this summer out in Colorado, and this will be their first experience going back. Well, I took them backpacking one time on the Manistee River Trail up in Michigan, and Brooklyn was like 8 months old, maybe 9 months old, and then Lacey was like not too much older, maybe 2. Well, I guess that is a decent amount older, but like maybe like 2.5. And mom went with us. It was me, mom, Michelle, and the girls. And Brooklyn was small, man. And we went, and it dropped down to like 40 degrees and raining.
Mm-hmm.
And 40 degrees and rain is way worse than like 20 degrees and dry, because 40 degrees and rain is where you can get real messed up, because you get that water and stuff starts to get wet and you can't dry stuff out. So it's been a couple years to gain back Michelle's trust and going on another backpacking trip. But we're going backpacking in Colorado this year. So I've been like, man, let's go out in the backyard and let's camp out in the backyard. And I just feel like somebody's gonna roll up on us, just like some dude. Like we were camping at this campground that we go to sometimes in the summertime, and we were all sleeping in the tent, and all of a sudden I just heard hit in the tent, and I'm like, what the heck is that? I go outside, and there's a dude whizzing on our tent. No joke. I mean, he had been indulging for probably the entire day.
Yeah.
And then he's out there peeing on our tent. And I was like, man, I know something like that's going to happen in my backyard. So we haven't done it yet, but I don't know how we got on that subject, but anyway.
Well, I guess circling it back to, going from the dude whizzing on the tent, segueing into
that's a true story, man.
What we plan on providing, right? So
yeah, for sure. Go ahead.
I mean, I guess my question to you is, without getting into guests and stuff, which
we have a couple cool ones lined up already.
We do.
If not just our family.
Episode 1 is Luke. Episode 2 is Tim Winder, our dad. Actually, that might be the case, but stick until episode 3 and you will be amazed.
Right. We'll get through the whole family. Episode 16, you're going to have a good time listening.
No, but if you had to sum up a couple goals of like, we want to be good listeners and we want to provide content. If like, if you're a 23-year-old, you know, guy or gal who just graduated college and, you know, is, you know, a top level vaulter or middle of the road vaulter and wants to just like learn and grow and expand, like what do you want to try to provide to them through this around the subject of pole vault?
Around the subject of pole vaulting, I think that there's a lot of mystery surrounding elite vaulters. Whenever I was younger, I was always like, "What are they doing? I just want to know what they're doing. Like are they lifting really heavy, or are they not lifting at all, or you know, what poles are they jumping on? How high are they gripping? You know, like, and there's like so much mystery, and like
Yeah.
you just kind of, there's like a guessing game, and I always found it very fascinating to know like the insider information,
Mm-hmm.
like, you know, what is for example, what is Sam Kendrick's gripping? Like, my thought is that he's gripping like 15.9 ish, maybe 16, you know, but I don't know that for sure. So I
For
think that
sure.
would be interesting. Like, if one day Sam, you know, would want to come on the podcast and be like, "Hey man, I've been wanting to know how high you're gripping for so
Yeah.
long." And there probably are people out there that are like, "Dude, just go on YouTube. He's got his
All of
grip
his
numbers
information,
and
but
everything." But I think that insider information is good. And then I think letting people, having these different guests on and having them explain their story, because their story is going to hit home with somebody out there.
yeah,
Like, my
yeah,
story will hit home with somebody out here. Your story for sure is going to hit home with people out here, which I want to go into that in a little bit about your struggles, because they relate identically to the struggles going on with kids right now in the pole vault and other athletes in the pole vault, athletes in general, I mean. But I think that there's always going to be somebody who's going to be able to relate to what the positions that you've been in. And now we have this like platform. We've done so much hard work pole vaulting and training for pole vaulting and becoming, you know, what we became as athletes. And Dad always said in his level system that we grew up in, that the final level, the mastery level, is giving back. That's the final frontier. That's it. That's the end of it. The end of it is you went through level 1, you went through level 2, and all of these are drills and training, and then you went through level 3, and then you went through level 4, and then the final level is the mastery level. And that is where you take all those skills that you developed in those levels, and then you give them to other people, and you give that
yeah.
information to kids, and you give them to coaches, and you give it to whoever, you know, will listen. So
Yeah.
that's where I'm at. What about
Well,
you?
I think that's that giving back and that kind of letting all of those lessons and drills and all of those things that were just a part of our lives for 10, 20 plus years. Um, Over time, those end up growing and taking on new forms. And I think what's cool about where I'm at in my life is like I I work and I work a lot and I'm in sales, right? And I think talking about relating, you know, certain stories and my story with the pole vault and how it might relate to others, like personally, all of my experience with pole vaulting um, grew and developed into so many other facets of my life, like my sales, my drive at work, my structure, my organization. I mean, I literally have like periodization charts for like how I'm going to tackle the week or the month or the year and how much
That's crazy.
prospecting I need to do. And it was all a result of how pole vaulting laid that groundwork.
Right.
And that's why I was able to hop into sales with zero sales experience, none, and ended up becoming literally the number one rep in the nation for sales because it was just for the specific company I was at, because it was just a part, it was ingrained in me. It was like, okay, I need to put this amount of work in. I need to have this much preparation. I need to have this much recovery or follow up. I need to provide this much pressure. I need to back off at this time. it's just crazy. And it's the same thing with distance running. You know, we're starting to tackle that now. I mean, like yesterday, I went out and ran a marathon out of nowhere, but
Hey.
I went out too hard, right?
Mhm.
And that was a lesson that in pole vaulting where it was like, dude, if you're starting the workout from full approach on your biggest pole right off the bat, you're going to end up in the box.
Yeah.
And I did right around mile 13, 14, because I went out too hard. My legs were like, hey, man, remember how you
It's
used to
starting
do
to
this in the
hurt.
vault? Yeah, it's not working out. And then you get to mile like, 17, 18, 19, and you're like, yeah, I ruined this workout,
Yeah.
because I didn't do what I'd always wanted or trained myself to do. But
You didn't
without
stick to your plan, or
correct, yeah, I think that's the point I'm getting at is no matter how much experience you have in something, how many life lessons you've learned, how many layers and layers of good days and training you have, at the end of the day, you know, my default, and I think a lot of people's default setting is to just really try to have a great performance as fast as you can and make it as fun as you can right away.
yeah.
And sometimes you got to pump the brakes and slow
That
down
concept of
and do
delayed
things right.
gratification is so hard, and as you get older you get a little bit better at it. I've gotten better at it since I was, younger. But that concept of delaying your gratification, doing stuff right now that right now is not that much fun,
Yeah.
but in the future, it's going to, pay dividends. And like right now, I had to get my stuff together on this quarantine, because at the beginning of this quarantine, man, I was just a slob, a big slob, man. And I felt like a slob. When you take your shirt off in the mirror and you're like, goodness gracious, what
Yeah.
the heck is going on here,
Yeah.
man? And I
I've
was
only
looking at
experienced
myself
that
like,
one. So
yeah,
no, I'm
right.
kidding.
But I was like, man, I'm turning into a slob here. And I was like, okay, so I know that I'm turning into a slob. I have to get myself back on track. But the problem is just that there's a fly in here. Sorry. Um, that initial that initial surge, okay, all right, this is the day. And then I would get to that day and be like, yeah, no, I'm all right.
Not
I'm
happening.
I'm good.
That's
And then but eventually I got to a point where I did move forward on that surge, and I just said to myself, you have to recreate your new normal, because what you've done is you've gotten yourself to think that the way that you're eating and the way that you're drinking right now is normal, and your body and your mind thinks that it's your new normal place.
yeah.
And so now, since you've dug yourself into that hole, you are responsible for getting yourself out of that hole. And how you get yourself out of that hole is creating a new normal that's going to hurt for a while. It's going
Yeah.
to hurt for a little bit, and but you get through one day, and then the second day isn't as bad as the first day. And then the third day isn't as bad as the second day. And then now I'm on like day 5. I was at like 192 like 4 or 5 days ago. And I was like, dude, I mean, I vaulted effectively, like at my best, between 180 and 185, but I was pretty jacked and I was strong. Now I'm just a dad, so 185, I'm not that strong. And I just, so my goal is like around like 180. That's where I try to stay
Yeah.
at, between 70 and 80. And so I was at 192, and then day 5, now I'm at 184. And so now I'm like, okay, I've got the ball rolling now.
Yeah.
And you create this new normal. But it's hard to eat the right things, because they don't taste as good as the bad things,
I know,
and
man.
and it's hard to it's hard to delay that gratification, because right now, if I eat the bad thing, it feels good and it tastes good. um
Right
but
away.
but yeah, right away it's just bam, you get that
Couple
instant,
toaster
oh, thank you,
strudels,
oh,
couple Pop Tarts.
gosh, man, brown sugar, 400 calories per Pop-Tart, and they come in a
Man.
2-pack,
Yep.
800 calories.
Yep.
I'm
That'll
pretty
taste
sure I'm
really,
right on that.
really good right
Right, but
away.
then 15 minutes later, you're like, you know what? Now I'm back in this hole, and now I feel like garbage again. So you know what? I might as well blow the rest of the day out too.
Do
Let's
it.
just blow the rest of the day out.
Send
Let's
it.
have a drink or something, and then let's, you know what?
Let's order some.
The
Yeah.
Portillo's line isn't that bad right now. So
Honey,
let's
I'm
just
gonna
go
go
over
out
to
and grab us some
Portillo's.
Portillos. You want a
And then
milkshake?
if I'm going over to Portillo's, it's always, I'm about to give you some insider information here. Okay. If I go to Portillo's, it's a large cheese fry.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. 2 Chicago styles with everything on them. And if I'm feeling healthy, a small cake shake.
Yep.
But if I'm feeling not
Well,
healthy,
speaking of
maybe a large or a medium. I don't even know if they come in
speaking
medium.
of cheese, that kind of reminds me. I don't have it pulled up yet, but it was a point that I wanted to bring up that maybe someday through, I don't know, Jan Johnson, Chelsea Johnson, the who's a decathlete who's married to
Trey
Chelsea?
Hardy.
Trey Hardy. I was blanking on his
Oh
name.
yeah, you
He
sent that
posted
over
up
to me.
and he said, like, I ate 3 to 5 pounds of cheese a week. And he said, I won sometimes and I lost sometimes, but I wouldn't change a thing. And I think that, talking about being disciplined and delayed gratification, there's also the flip side of the coin of like,
for sure.
am I going to cut every single thing out of my life? You and I have both gone into some dark, super disciplined times where it's like, for the next 90 days, I'm not doing anything but pole vaulting. And it's like, I'm not, hey, sorry, baby, I can't go and walk the dog with you because it'll affect my legs for tomorrow's workout.
100%.
But it's
You better believe
less than a mile.
it.
I can't risk it. I don't want to like have
So messed up.
run through tomorrow because I walked the dog. But I guess one more topic with delayed gratification. So you've got these 2 guys at your club, these 2 teenagers who are
Teenager
really,
1 and teenager 2.
yeah, who are really, really outstanding high school vaulters. These 2 guys,
Outstanding, very talented.
And their gratification, or really their season, has been delayed completely, if not completely eliminated.
Tuesday IHSA is making the official announcement.
How have you talked to each of them individually or together? I know that maybe someday we might be able to throw them on this podcast, but like, how are they feeling right now? Are they like, I mean, think about, I won state my junior year, and I no doubt wanted to try to repeat my senior year. I had kind of a curveball with that injury, which we can get into in a second, but like, to not have the ability to repeat or try to was really, really, really disheartening. So I guess expand on what they're facing.
They both, the one that's similar to your situation that won state last year, he was on the upswing. He was starting to jump well, and just to be clear, he was jumping with us during the off season, and then he went back and with his high school coach, who's a solid high school coach, and jumped with him. But we stayed in good communication, and but he was on an upswing, and he was disappointed, but he's got a pretty good head on his shoulders, and so he's already committed to a college, and so I don't know, it seems to me like he's just been like, you know what, this is the situation that I've been dealt, and that is it's disappointing, but it is what it is. He got to win his state championship. That's huge, man. I mean, it's it's so hard to win a state or a national championship because you got to be there and be solid on that day. You know, you cannot have an off day on that day. So
Yeah.
he's good. And then the other guy, he continued to, he's been training with us, you know,
Yeah.
throughout the whole season. And he had a really, really big upside. He's technically one of, I mean, he's way better than me technically, than I
Yeah.
was technically, and he's probably better than all three of us were technically.
Yeah.
Um, and he did not get a chance to win his state championship, which, you know, obviously disappointed him. You know, he is, you know, just like the other guy, he's very, very humble and you know, down to earth, and he understands, you know, that it is what it is, but he committed to go to school already too. So they both are gonna have futures, you know. And I don't know. I mean, and the thing is too is that I'm planning on hopefully having some meets in the summer.
Yeah.
I don't think USATF is going to provide insurance for those meets, and I don't think you're going to be able to sanction meets. Actually, I'm pretty sure that they released that they're not going to be sanctioning meets this
Yeah.
summer.
But
But you
what are
can,
you jumping for anyways if you don't know what the foreseeable future is
yeah.
for
I
events? Like if
think a lot
you
of
jump
these,
a
yeah,
15-foot, 16-foot bar in high school at a USATF sanction meet, yeah, that qualifies you for, you know, Nike Nationals or New Balance Nationals or something. But like if we don't know what any of
yeah,
that means, you might as
it
well
would
jump
just
for
be,
fun, right?
hey, that's what we should do. We should have the state meet at the club.
Oh, actually, that would be pretty.
Dude, that would be awesome.
You could
Just
advertise that.
take the final rankings and just be like, all right, top 20 girls, top
You've
20
been
guys,
invited
let's
to
go.
the Rise Athletic Club state championship.
We could call it the
That would actually be pretty funny. Take the
RISA, the Rise Illinois High School
Well,
Association
it's just like Illinois
Championship.
Prep Top Times. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah. So that's true.
and not
And I
everyone you
think,
qualify, but not everyone always shows. That's the same thing. Hey, if you're a top 10 vaulter, top 15 vaulter, you've been
yeah,
invited.
dude. And so anyway, so that my other guy, he, you know, he's got an incredibly bright future, and
Yeah.
I've talked to him about this, and I've just been like, dude,
Nice, really, really
yeah,
nice kid too.
yeah. I was like, you know, you just need to just hang in there, keep swinging. He'll be fine. He's a mental savage.
Well, I was gonna say so pole breaks, right?
Well,
I've
before you go on, I also do want to say that the girls in our club were
spectacular.
popping off.
I know there's one girl
Like,
that
no
going
joke.
over like a
We were
12 or
having
13
girls
foot.
13-foot bungees, you know, good cracks at 13-foot bungees from 4 lefts, 5 lefts. You
Yeah.
know, like, just I was really looking forward to the girls, and there were a few girls too that had that, like, in practice it was just like, holy cow, they are about to snap off and jump big bars, and then
Yeah. Boom.
see you later.
So
Anyway,
one thing that I kind of want to segue into, and I don't know how we're doing on time, but I know that this first episode we probably shouldn't, show all the cards, if you will.
yes.
But because we have a lot of cards up our sleeves that we're just gonna
Ooh, yeah.
but the mental piece, right? You mentioned this Walter's really strong mentally, and I think that's one of the things I talked about, how I want to become a better listener and learn a lot. But like, if I had to give anything, it would be being able to help vaulters, high school, college, especially college. College is a weird time, man, and post college, understand how to get through things, but also just have a better mental outlook, better mental strength towards things, because I feel like I have dealt with so many ups and downs in my career, both, accidental, random things that happen, and then times where you go off the deep end and you think, you've got to stick with some plan or whatever it is. But your guy, I saw him break a pole at Reno Vault Summit. Am I thinking of the right?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, he broke a pole at the Reno Vault Summit, and some, and this is no offense at all to any of the people who might be listening who, packed it up after that, but some people like don't have it in them to take another step down the runway. Some people don't have the ability to muster up the energy and say like, okay, that happened, whatever. I'm in the middle of warm-ups here, so give me the next pole, or I guess I got to drop down and focus on technique or whatever it is. And I think I know you've always been like that too, where, I mean, I remember the famous video of you, famous, a couple thousand views, but of you breaking the pole over the summer. And I remember thinking like, that pole just blew up and blew his hands up. And you can see in the video, like just how contorted your hands were. And then
look at my hands now. That's just normal.
But then, in what was crazy about that video is, what happened after that? You were on a 490 pole gripping right near the end, and you went up to a 5-meter pole, and then cleared the bungee. And I was like, holy cow, that just, not to toot your horn or anything, but that was like next level. That's the kind of stuff where I learned something significant that day. And it was like, you can either get back on the horse or pack it up. And sometimes packing it up's okay. Whenever I blew my shoulder out, I had to pack it up.
On the horse.
I had to pack it up. Right. Although I did try to lift my pull up and then my shoulder dislocated. And I was like, not happening.
It's going to happen. Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of 17, 18, 19-year-olds where they're still trying to understand. They've got all these hormones going through their body and they don't know what to do. And they don't know if they should be emotionally like fired up and upset or really grounded and mentally strong. And I just remember being in that place thinking, like, what do I do?
That's something that you can develop, or do you think that that's something that you're born with, or do you think it's how you're raised? I know for me, like I would point to mom and dad, just always requiring that of us, like, hey, no, you're crying, okay, cry for a second, okay, now it's over, it's time to get going again, come on, here we go.
I think
I don't know. Because there's sometimes where I'm coaching and I will look a kid in the eye and I'll be like, they got it.
So, really good example. And I was just thinking of it the other day. I actually think of it a lot. So I'm not going to dive into names or schools or colleges or anything, but there was a specific vaulter that would always have mental breakdowns, right? I'd be a coach at a high school, and my vaulters were good, 13, 14, upper 14 foot vaulters. We did the best that we could in the few years that I coached there, but we were all very disciplined. We didn't, they didn't mess around very much. If they missed the bar, they didn't take the crossbar and throw it across the runway. They didn't throw their pole, nothing like that. Like to the point where they were very hypersensitive of people who did do that. And they'd be like, hey coach, you see him or you see her? Yeah. I don't want to be that person. It was like, okay, like don't think about it too much, but yeah, that's cool that you can pick up on that. But there was a group of people who were always at our meets. They were a team that was always with us, probably once a month. Right. And there was this one specific vaulter who always had really, really, really big mental breakdowns. Without diving,
we all know him. Well, not him. We all know people. We don't know that person.
But
We all know people like that.
I mean,
Is what I'm trying
throwing
to
the
say.
pole, throwing the chalk bag, literally,
Oh yeah,
trying to
temper
break the
tantrums.
crossbar, pushing over a standard one time. Yeah,
What the?
yep. And
Did you
then,
ever try to like fight an official or anything?
oh my gosh, I was the official, and I
He
just,
tried to fight you. You want to
I'm
fight?
not. So, but then get this. The point of the story is, then he went to college.
Uh-huh.
Done.
He was
Hey,
fine.
I've
He
turned
was
a new.
good.
He decided I can't
Yeah,
be this embarrassing 18 plus
that's
year old.
awesome.
And it's cool, but it made me realize, talk about nature versus nurture, like it was, in my opinion, his dad who was allowing and promoting this to happen.
Hmm.
And, being a consultative, like, hey, it's, you're okay, it's okay, you'll do better next time, rather than saying like, you have got to be kidding me. That is
Yeah,
so inappropriate. If you're upset, that's fine. You know what we would do? We would say, hey, love you, mom, love you, dad, but I'm gonna go head over to the corner of the field house, kind of just
work
get
some stuff out.
work some stuff out. And guess what? When I come back, I will high five you guys. We can go out to dinner. We can do all that, but I need some space. But basically, this guy went to college, and boom, I remember seeing him later on
That's
in
awesome.
a meet that we were competing at, and I said that to him, point blank. I was like, "Hey, man, you've really turned a page here. You
That's
vaulted
cool.
great today. You're surrounded by a bunch of cool people. So if you're at a point where you're in high school or college and you want to turn that page, like, you can. It literally is
For
as easy
sure.
of like, I don't have to be the dude who throws his pole every meet because I did it last meet, and this meet I missed the same bar that I wanted every week and I missed it again. I'm not going to throw my pole this week. I'm going to
Yeah,
sit on my bag and maybe go high five my coach and say, I think I'm going to get it next week. Like that's what I want to
that's
try
cool, man.
to teach and help people understand,
Yeah, and I think that that's part of getting older too. I think you just
for
start
sure.
to like be like, you know what, this is kind of immature what I'm doing right now. And a lot of those issues I think stem from people. uh, Every time that I've ever acted like an idiot, it's because I've either been trying to impress, somebody,
Yeah.
or there's this pressure that I have that I put on myself or somebody else put on me. Because you don't realize too, like I'm an elementary school teacher too, and I see, you know, kids all the time who are pressured by their parents, really hard, like
For sure.
you better do this and you better perform. That's not how winders perform.
Yep.
How many times have you ever, heard mom or dad say, that's not how you know I did? That's not how winders do it. You know, that's they've
No.
never they've never said that. They've
But if
never
you
put any
know
pressure.
hided
But we
and chucked your pole across the track, then they'd say, that's not how winders do it. And I
That's not
think
how
that
winders do it, and then you might have a wrestling match on your hands.
that's the thing about dad is not afraid. I think that's a big nature nurture thing.
Not
The
afraid to
nurture
wrestle you
piece.
down in front of
He's not
everybody.
afraid to take
No,
it
I'm
to your
just
level.
joking.
If you go up to him and
Yeah.
I'm just not happy with this, and well, neither am I. It's like he's never, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. And I appreciated that because I learned to, I mean, it's just like whenever you're talking to somebody and you maybe say something funny or you think is funny and they come back with well, I didn't think that was very funny.
Yeah.
I feel like we've always kind of had that relationship with dad that we knew to, we knew to not push it to the level emotionally that he gets heightened too, because
For sure.
it's both of us. We're all getting too fired up, bring it
Right.
down.
Hey, I That's my sump pump again. I think that it would be very beneficial for you to give some advice on how to get out of this situation that a lot of these kids are in. So there's athletes that, not kids, it's athletes, it's everybody. Think about Mondo. That guy was on a huge upswing. He was blowing up bars, like
Yep.
blowing up world records. And then see you later. No
Yep.
more meets. Like, what is he feeling right now? So anyway, so there, and then there's, athletes that, like we're talking about earlier, that are never going to have that chance to win that state championship, even though there was a good chance of them doing it,
Yeah.
or qualifying for state. Man, think about how hard some kids work to qualify for state and things like that. Okay. So you, as a senior, you blew your shoulder out indoors at Rolling Meadows Pole Vault Summit?
Correct.
At Rolling Meadows Pole Vault Summit.
Nick Viken.
Hey, there he is. And Dave Viken. I vaulted with Dave Viken, 16 plus.
That was talk about a good vault family.
That's another good vault family right there, man. So anyway, so you blew your shoulder out. Yeah, don't sleep on the Vikings. So you blew your shoulder out, and then there goes the rest of your senior season. You had won a state championship as a junior, so no more senior season for Josh Winder.
Yeah.
And no freshman season in college for Josh Winder. So a lot of these kids are going to have no senior season, but they'll get their freshman season in college, hopefully.
Correct.
So what got you through that?
Goodness.
Besides rehab.
That's an open-ended question. Internal and external rotation, 3 sets of 10. No, there's several parts to that, but I think kind of explaining the overall situation a tiny bit more in depth. Blew my shoulder out, which was a labrum and rotator cuff tear. It was a dislocated shoulder. But what's funny is not funny, but I didn't listen to the first doctor I went to said, "You need surgery." And I said, no, I don't. Right. So we're trying it just like the athletic trainer or the teacher that tries to get you to work harder on your homework or whatever it is. It was like, no, I'm an ego filled, prideful senior in high school, and I'm swole and worked so hard. I don't need surgery.
You were pretty swole.
I was
back then.
305 at 165 pounds on the bench. Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's a couple people that are sizing themselves up to that, and that's a tough one. But anyways, and I thought, I don't need to get surgery. Right. And I remember going back and telling Dad and saying, hey, this guy says I need surgery. And he reacted the same way I did. Nah, Winders haven't dealt with that yet. Right. So
No, none of us had dealt with that yet.
So then I rehabbed for, whatever that was, probably 3 months, and then tried to plant a pole again. And
rehabbed as in you did physical therapy instead of
physical therapy,
shoulder surgery.
Correct. And shoulder dislocated first jump. Right. And it was just okay, that. So now we've got a serious issue. So yeah, Mom was wearing my Letterman jacket the other day as a joke, cause we're all bored out of our brains and quarantine, and it only had 3 Illinois State patches on it. It didn't have a 4th one. Cause I had qualified freshman, sophomore, junior, and didn't have a senior year. She didn't even remember that I had messed up my shoulder.
I think she did. She just she sent a follow-up text to that, I'm pretty sure.
I didn't read that one. But so then fast forward 3, 4, 5 months later, still rehabbing, finally went to another surgeon, and he was like, "You need shoulder surgery." And I was like, okay. But he added one more thing in there that really, to this day, frustrated me so much. And it was a legitimate thing for him to say, because you've got to be honest as a doctor. My wife's a doctor. She's a surgeon, actually, a foot and ankle surgeon. And you've got to be direct with your patients, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But he told me, he said, you need surgery. So I already knew that. And you're never going to pole vault again. And that was that second piece that I was like, and this was our team physician. I guess
our team physician. That's the alias.
Yeah.
North Central's team physician.
I don't know if he still is, but he was our team physician, and he said, you need surgery and you'll never pole vault again. So then I followed up with some questions like, what do you mean? Do you understand pole vault? I understand pole vault, the physics. Is it this angle? Is it that angle? And he's like, no. You're not understanding. If I do this surgery, your shoulder is going to be so tight and jacked up, and then it's going to be all these adhesions, and it's just going to happen again eventually, because it's such a high impact sport at takeoff that it's going to feel good. It's going to feel good. And then boom. So then I guess speeding up the story a little bit, finally saw a couple more months of rehab, just because I didn't want to just sit around. Saw another surgeon, and he said, you need surgery. And I was like, all right, third time's the charm, right? And he said, and I think he used an exact percentage. I think he said, I'm like 98% sure that you will come back and be able to pole vault in one fashion or another. And that was enough.
That's cool
for me to be like, you're my guy, let's do it. And I think it was like 3 days later, went in there, got shoulder surgery. But what was crazy is I had to change everything. And there's a point I'm making to your question here. The micro adjustments for the macro result was like very, very, very important. So there's times where in the past where it was like, yeah, if I sprint a bunch and lift a bunch, I'll get better. But my mindset changed to, after that shoulder injury, all of these little tiny things are going to have to add up, because I can't lift, and I can't pole vault, and I can't do high bar work. So I was trying to train as a pole vaulter without being able to do high bar work, without being able to pole vault, and without being able to do anything that was above my shoulder for 2 years. And then sophomore year, boom, was adjusted my jump enough to be able to vault 17 plus. And the point crazy. I'm getting at with these micro things is like, you've got these guys and gals and everyone whose seasons came to a halt, a complete halt, and they don't know what the foreseeable future looks like. And they can't do the big things. They can't vault right now. They can't go to their, they might not have a gym membership. And if they did, it's closed down. We're all quarantined. So you have to be able to find these things that make you gain physical strength, but more so mental strength, and doing things that, every single day are making you tougher, making you prepared for whenever, boom, hey, I feel good, I'm ready to go. Runway's open. Rise Athletic Club is back open, firing on all cylinders. Will I have laid the groundwork in that 2-month quarantine or 2-year period of not being able to, pole vault?
Yeah.
To be able to jump right back where I was. And that's exactly what I did. I jumped 16.9 my junior year in high school. Didn't have a senior year in high school, didn't have a freshman year in college. What did I jump first meet back sophomore year? Redbird invite, 17.1.
No.
No, it was 17.1. And that's so think sick, about that.
Man.
Think about
that's
that.
So
16.9, 2 years off. Yeah. Not off, but 2 years of no vaulting. Personal best. And
not bad.
But did I jump much higher than that? No, because I learned quickly that the pole that I vaulted that jump on was about as big of a pole is my shoulder was going to allow me to get on. And that sounds like such an excuse, but
oh, it's not an excuse. I remember at the end, towards the, or somewhere, I don't know, maybe it was your junior or your senior year, or maybe your sophomore year, I don't know, but it was like, dude, Josh jumped 17.1, he's back, he's ready to rock, he's going to jump 18 this year, no problem.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, whack,
yeah,
something happened with your shoulder again. And it was like, oh, dude, I gotta take 6 weeks
one
off.
one step forward, 10 big steps backwards every time. And
that was
if you added up all my
train
meets,
wreck.
if you added up all my meets, so I still have a whole year of eligibility left, NCAA eligibility.
Let's get it going.
I know. Plus, if you added up all the meets, maybe equals a season.
Yeah.
Maybe that equals a season.
That you missed?
No, a season. If you add up my sophomore, junior, and senior year meets combined, because there's times where you
crazy, man.
So I guess I had a different outlook after all the shoulder stuff, because I realized, like, when you take 2 years off vaulting, whether you like it or not, you lose a bit of the competitive fire where you're like, I need this, because you don't feel like you need it anymore because it's not a part of your every single day life. But at the same time, I realized pretty quickly that the way my shoulder felt, the poles I was able to get on, that my inability to be able to do certain training things, like I couldn't do, high bar work. I couldn't do, I don't know if you remember, I couldn't do anything that was pinky out, like pull-ups this way, lat pull-downs this way, dumbbell presses this way, or else my shoulder would slip. So this is post-surgery. So I was having to do all this stuff that was real close. And then I'd go and plant this big pole, and it would just, I mean, you can, that's my good shoulder.
Yeah. I do remember you doing a set of 10 pull-ups with a 100-pound dumbbell between your legs. So that was pretty solid. Like, now, no swinging, just all the way locked out at the bottom, and above the bar at top.
When that was
100 pounds with a set of 10.
Remember when that was, though? That was freshman year before I got surgery. So that was that time whenever that was literally the surgeon said, "Hey, you're gonna need surgery," and this was the team physician, and I'd already accepted the fact that I'm going to need surgery. I guess I just needed another doctor's opinion or whatever. And I remember there was like a 2-month period in the fall, because I think I got my surgery in like October. So like that September where we were all lifting like crazy. I remember I did just say, screw it. I'm going to lift an insane amount of weight, knowing that my left arm is going to get atrophied completely.
Yeah, you were going nuts.
I don't think I even answered the question, and I feel like I'm rambling on here.
No, you did. You answered the question. The question was, what do you tell these kids? And the question is, or the answer is the same thing that I talked about on Broncos podcast. You do what you can, and you realize that you're creating a bunch of anxiety about you not being able to pole vault whenever you come back, and you losing all of your power.
Yeah.
And you're losing your pole vaulting abilities. They don't go away overnight. You could grab a pole right now, and in 2 weeks you could jump 490,
for sure.
Maybe you could jump 490 right now. I don't know. But I think that's takeaway number one, is you're not going to lose as much as you think you're going to lose during this time. I put a post on Instagram the other day, and it said, 2 weeks off, there really is no negative effects, towards that. And then, if you go out beyond 5 weeks, you're going to have a little bit of timing issues, but you're going to be able to shore that up in like 5 to 10 vault sessions, and
100%.
then you'll be fine. But the crux of that whole thing, so point number 2 is that you have to remain in condition to be about 2 weeks out from being in vaulting shape, and vaulting shape and regular person shape is totally different, so you need to be 2 weeks away from that. Does that mean you have to be in prime condition right now? No, you don't have to be in prime condition right now, but you need to be 2 weeks away from it.
So here's I guess my 16.9 to 520 example of having 2 years off. Like, look at that guy at your club who broke the pole. He jumped indoors 5 meters.
He jumped 5 meters that meet.
So you're telling
That meet he broke the pole in warm-ups and then jumped 5 meters.
So he jumps 5 meters and he takes, let's just be, I guess, what I want as a somewhat realistic estimation of COVID-19. Let's just say 6 months.
Yeah. Right.
Jumps 5 meters, 6 months off vaulting, but is doing pole runs, doing slide box, doing high bar, doing body weight exercises, has a couple sets of dumbbells at his house, is making ends meet in terms of his workouts.
Not eating the 800 calorie Pop-Tarts.
Yeah, not eating 800 calorie Pop-Tarts. Is he going to vault 520, give or take, within a month or have the ability to? Yes.
Yeah.
If he's going to be able to hop back in and have attempts at a 17-foot bar within
he's
reason.
one example. He's one example.
Correct.
Everybody is like that. Everybody is like that. You'll be taking cracks at your current personal best inside of a month, probably, in general. And the longer you've pole vaulted, the quicker that return's going to be. You know, if you are just a beginner and like you were still, it probably is the same thing for those guys too. That made me think of this post. Did you see McGregor's post today? It was for me, it was one of the greatest posts that I've ever seen. I'm a big,
wasn't it something
Conor
with
fan.
Like a flashback or something?
Yeah, he said it's this picture. I don't know if you can see it. It's whenever he got arrested for, I don't know if this is for whenever he slapped that old man or he punched him. No, he punched that old man at that bar. Or if this is the one where he smashed that cell phone in Miami or something like that. But anyway, I'm pretty sure that this is
the thing through the bus window
or through he's had a couple of issues. So he went off the rails, and the coolest part is that this is like that delayed gratification piece that we were talking about earlier. And if you're in that situation right now where you're going off the rails, like I was, you have to be able to recognize that about yourself. So in order to be able to use those two pieces of advice that we gave, you have to be able to recognize if you're going off of the rails. Like, are you getting to where it's like, no, I'm about 3 weeks out from being in good shape, or maybe 4 weeks out, or maybe 2 months out, you know, because you can get off the rails. And once you get off, everything accelerates pretty quickly and you can get pretty far gone pretty quickly. So anyway, he recognized that about himself. And he said, I ordered all of my powers back to me, and that order was followed. So he's saying, like, he ordered, and he said, I am making myself a new normal. I'm going to create a new normal and get myself back to the best me possible. And he said that order was followed that he gave himself. It is never too late to summon our powers and advance to higher ground. Never, ever too late. Whatever stage we are at, there is always higher power and there is always higher ground. Good luck. And then he said, work hard, focus, rededication equals results. And I think that's what it is, man. That's what it is. Recognize if you're going off the rails and be honest with yourself. Like I was at the beginning, I am starting to be a slob, starting to get lazy on this, starting to get lazy on that. And then recognize it and just say, okay, I'm commanding myself to refocus. I'm not saying, hey, today I'm going to try my best to do this. It's not try your best. It's This is
Yeah.
has to be done. You have to do this. You're commanding yourself to do it, you know, and you need to follow those orders. So anyway,
I think
that's
I
that.
think that's a good kind of segue into the ending of this first episode.
Yeah,
I don't
man,
know.
it was fun. It went by really, really fast though.
It did. I have no idea. I forgot to start a timer, but I guess we'll
We are at an hour and 13 minutes.
yeah, we're
So,
rolling with the punches here. In between
yeah.
the sump pumps and the rambling on of
Of
answers.
random stuff. Yeah. So that's what it is. And this is what we're going to be doing. Like we said, we've got some really cool guests lined up, and we've got a big giant list of people that we would really like to be on the podcast. And if you have any suggestions, keep them, put them in the comments. We'd really appreciate it if you subscribe to our YouTube channel. And anything you want to say, Big Dog?
I was just gonna say, if there's any takeaway, it's just making sure you, like McGregor said, you know, command yourself into making something happen during this time. We're in a pretty interesting time with this COVID-19 going on. Some people have the ability to go outside. Some states really don't have the ability to go outside and enjoy, you know.
And then in you know where, the Philippines.
What's going on there?
Remember, they're shooting people over there. They said if you go outside, you can get shot.
Yeah. So some
By the
people are under
That's no
strict,
joke, man.
strict lockdown. Other people
Especially
aren't.
if
But
you're in the Philippines.
at the end of the day, do everything you can to try to produce some results. Don't go, you know, psycho over it. Don't feel like you can't have a Pop-Tart every once in a while. But yeah, just enjoy life, have fun, do the best that you can, and stick with it. So we'll see you, I guess, next time. I don't know if it'll be a couple days, couple weeks, couple months, but we'll try to get a second episode up fairly soon.
Yeah, we're gonna try to get it done sooner than later. But yeah, so that is first episode of One More Jump podcast. And there it is.